Deep beneath the ocean surface, a creature that has existed on this planet for hundreds of millions of years has been quietly carrying around a material that modern materials science did not believe was possible in nature. Its jaws are not made of bone. They are not made of shell. They are not made of any biological material that science had previously categorized. They are made of something that behaves like metal, with the hardness of metal, the mechanical properties of metal, and the atomic behavior of metal. But that is fundamentally and completely different from any metal that has ever been synthesized in a laboratory. In July 2026, researchers from TU Wien and the University of Vienna published a study formally defining this material for the first time. They called it biometal, and their conclusion was that nature had solved a materials engineering problem that modern industry is still struggling with. Not recently, not in the last few centuries, but millions of years ago, in the jaw of a worm that most people would step over on a beach without a second thought. Stay with me for the next 6 minutes because what this tiny creature has been carrying around since before humans existed tells us something deeply uncomfortable about how much we think we know and how little we actually do. The creature is called Paraneres cultrifera. It is a predatory bristle worm, a marine worm roughly the length of a pencil that lives in coastal sediments around the world, including the coasts of Europe, Africa, and Asia. It uses its jaws to bite, crush, and consume prey, including small crustaceans and other marine invertebrates. It is not rare. It is not endangered. It is not even particularly interesting to look at. Marine biologists have known about it for well over a century. But for most of that time, the specific composition and mechanical properties of its jaws were not examined in close detail. When researchers finally examined them properly, using nanoindentation testing, chemical imaging, and atomic scale mechanical modeling, what they found stopped them completely. The jaws of Paraneres cultrifera are constructed from structural proteins bonded directly to metal ions, not metal particles, not metal compounds. Metal ions, individual electrically charged metal atoms, integrated directly into the protein structure of the jaw at the atomic level. The result is a material that combines the flexibility of biological tissue with the hardness and mechanical resilience of metal. In the scientific literature, materials with metal-like properties had always been synthetic, engineered in laboratories at great expense using advanced manufacturing processes. Nature was not supposed to be able to do this. Paraneres cultrifera has been doing it for millions of years. The specific mechanical properties of biometal are what make the discovery genuinely revolutionary for materials science. The research team discovered two phenomena in the bristle worm jaw that had never previously been observed in a biological material simultaneously. The first is the Nix-Gau nanoindentation size effect, a phenomenon previously observed only in crystalline metals like copper and silver. This effect means that smaller regions of the material are harder to dent than larger regions, a mechanical behavior that emerges from the atomic structure of metals, and that was believed to require crystalline metal organization to produce. The bristle worm jaw produces this effect without being crystalline metal. The second phenomenon is size-dependent elasticity. The elastic response of the material changes depending on the scale at which it is tested. Elasticity in this context means how a material deforms under force and then returns to its original shape. In copper and silver, you see the size effect in hardness but not in elasticity. In the bristle worm jaw, you see it in both simultaneously. This combination has never been observed in any material before, natural or synthetic. The research team concluded that biometals represent an entirely new category of material that requires its own classification framework, separate from all existing categories of biological or metallic materials. The engineering implications of this discovery are significant in ways that connect directly to some of the most expensive and difficult problems in modern materials science. The bristleworm jaw achieves exceptional hardness at its tips, where the material experiences the most physical wear during biting and crushing, through a gradient of metal ion concentration that is higher at the tips than at the center. This is an extraordinarily sophisticated engineering solution. Instead of making the entire jaw from the hardest material available, which would make it brittle and prone to shattering, nature built a gradient material that is hard where hardness matters and more flexible where flexibility prevents fracture. Modern materials engineers have been trying to create gradient materials with precisely this property combination for decades, using processes that require high temperatures, specialized equipment, and expensive raw materials. The bristleworm builds the same solution using proteins and metal ions available in the ocean around it, at ambient temperature, without any external energy input, and reproduces this exact material in every individual jaw it grows throughout its life. The process is biological. The result is metal-grade engineering performance, and it has been working continuously for longer than the human species has existed. The connection to ancient natural solutions is not subtle here. This is a recurring pattern in the history of materials science. Modern industry develops an expensive, energy-intensive, environmentally damaging process to produce a material with specific properties. Then, researchers examine a natural organism and discover that evolution arrived at an equivalent or superior solution millions of years ago using freely available materials and zero external energy. Spider silk is stronger than steel by weight and has been known for decades. But industrial processes to replicate it at scale remain impractical and expensive. Abalone shell is tougher than any synthetic ceramic we can produce, organized at the nanoscale in a way that prevents crack propagation, and marine mollusks have been growing it for 500 million years. Lotus leaves are more water repellent than any synthetic hydrophobic coating developed to date, and the lotus has been using its microstructured surface for 40 million years. Biometal joins this list. Nature solved the gradient hardness problem. Nature solved the biometal problem. Nature solved the crack-resistant ceramic problem. Nature solved the superhydrophobic surface problem. Modern materials science keeps spending billions of dollars discovering solutions that living organisms implemented long before the first human being drew breath. What the researchers from TU Wien and Vienna are now studying is whether biometal properties can be understood well enough to guide the development of new synthetic materials inspired by the bristleworm jaw structure. This field, called bio-inspired materials science, starts from the observation that natural organisms have had hundreds of millions of years of evolutionary pressure to optimize their materials for specific performance requirements, and that the solutions produced by this process are often more elegant and more effective than anything engineered from scratch by human designers working on timescales of years or decades. The bristleworm jaw is now a template, not to copy it exactly. That would be impossible given the biological complexity of how it grows, but to understand the principles it uses and apply those principles to synthetic material design. The gradient metal ion concentration principle, the protein and ion integration principle, the size-dependent hardness principle. These can potentially be translated into new manufacturing approaches that produce materials with properties no existing synthetic material can match. Nature wrote the blueprint. It has been sitting on a beach, being ignored, for millions of years. We are finally starting to read it. An ancient worm with jaws that behave like metal. A material that modern science did not know existed in nature until 2 weeks ago. A set of mechanical properties that required entirely new scientific frameworks to describe, and a blueprint for materials engineering that evolution perfected while dinosaurs were still walking the earth. The ancient world, not just the human ancient world, but the biological ancient world that predates us by hundreds of millions of years, contains solutions to problems that we are spending enormous resources trying to solve from scratch. The bristle worm knew something we did not. It still does. Subscribe to Lost Wise right now because next week we are uncovering the ancient Egyptian mummy that was discovered with pages from Homer's Iliad used in its embalming.